Hey folks, it's Sven again, and today it's proper chords to Bei dir war es immer so schön. I teach it in the key of G. It's a very nice German song, sung by Hildegard Knef originally, and it's composed by Theo Mackeben. And it became famous in Gypsy Jazz through the versions of Birelli Lagrène on his album Gypsy Project, and also the version of Joshua Stephan. Birelli plays it in G, and this is the key that's usually called when played in Gypsy Jazz. So here we go. I will play an introduction first, then one chorus to show, and after that I will explain all the details. I will also sing it so that you can follow the melody, but it's not that I want to show you any, great singing. It's just for you to follow the song and follow the melody, so I will give my best. It's like this.
Immer so schön und es fällt mir unsagbar schwer zu gehen, denn nur bei dir war ich wirklich zu Haus, doch der Traum, den ich hier gelebt, ist aus. Denn warum hast du mir denn so wehgetan? Und was fang ich ohne dich an? Denn nur bei dir war es immer so schön. Doch weil du eine andere liebst, muss ich gehen.
And from the top. So that's the song. Actually, and in the intro I started with G with B in the bass, and this is a very typical ballad intro. So I got B here on the E string 7th fret, the A string is muted. Then we got the G, the root on the D string. The ring finger is playing natural D and the pinky is playing G. The next chord will be B flat diminished, and for that I just have to move these fingers one fret below. The index stays where it was before. So from G with B in the bass we can move very easily to some form of B dim or B dim 7, whatever this chord is called. The pinky adds some strange note here. Usually it's played like this, but in this intro we play like this one and this one. Then I have played a normal A minor 7 like you played in jazz music with the middle finger on the bass. Again, the A string is muted, and I bend my ring finger to cover all 3 strings. If this is impossible for you, just use all the 4 fingers with index, middle, ring and pinky. Some players even play it with the thumb in the bass and with a form of, bended bar chord in the index. This is also fine, there's a lot of options. These are the most common ones, this one and this one. And of course, it's just, the basic notes of the bar chord, but it's very important that it leaves out the 5th, because the 5th down here is a note that we avoid in 2-5 for some reasons. It doesn't naturally have to be that. You can use actually every chord. But, you should use some idiomatic voicings to get the original sound, As much as the more you replace, the less it will sound like the original style. And that's true for every style. So there is some idiomatic things to learn, and you can break all the rules and all the chords will work, and other voicings. But this is like the typical sound of this introduction. A minor 7, and then the last chord is interesting too. I played D9 13 and then D9 flat 13, and I try to accent that one like, which is a typical gypsy swing move. So here we go again. G with B in the bass, B flat diminished, A minor 7, and then D9 13 and D9 flat 13. And I played all the notes together like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then I play this bass movement like, and then the song starts actually. And it's a funny moment because these intros played a lot, but actually, you know, the D leads to G, but the song starts on C, like a lot of great songs like After You've Gone, I See You in My Dreams, or Just Friends, you know. It starts with the 4th degree and then 4th degree minor and so on. So the C that can be played, or one of the Cs that can be played, is the one I started with, and this is C69, and this is a typical idiomatic gypsy jazz voicing. My thumb is playing C in the bass, then the middle finger is playing both strings, G and C at the same time. And this is not a bar chord. You reach this by placing your finger between the strings. The index is playing E, and the ring finger is banded for A and D, which is the 6 and the 9. So it's C, 6, 9. So to make that a minor chord, all I do is I play C minor 6, 9 and remove the 3rd. I don't remove it, I move it 1 fret below. You see? C major 6, 9, C minor 6, 9. Then again, like in the introduction, I play G, but with B in the bass, just to make this little nice movement here. After that, again, B flat diminished. This is all like in the intro. A minor 7, D9 or D7 9. Again, here I'm placing my middle finger between E and A string to get both of the notes. So it's a chord covering all 6 strings and sounds very typical in that style. The guitar starts a bit buzzing, you know, and that's what you want to achieve. This, it's exactly the sound, you know. It's not a fault from the instrument or anything. It's exactly the sound you need here, you know. And this is what makes styles unique, you know. And then we got G. So for the G6 or G major, I play again G6 9. Same voicing that we had for C, but in the 3rd fret. If this is difficult, just play the middle strings with middle finger, ring finger, index, and pinky, so that you got D, G in the 5th fret, B in the 4th fret, and E in the 5th fret. And if you can do that one without problems, you can try to add the thumb over the fretboard. And if that's still impossible, you can play the G6 chord like this. So instead of thumb, you use your index. Mute the A string and then play the remaining strings like this. All of these possibilities sound good, okay? To return to the C now, we do have 2-5 playing D minor, and this is the pretty normal jazz voicing, you know, with like D, F, you need this stretch again that you already know from the G with G in the bass, B in the bass. Ring finger is playing the 7th, C, and then the pinky is playing F. That's it, you know. And when I play G7, I often play G sharp diminished, which would be the same sound that G13 with the flat 9 on the bass. You see, this is a chord played a lot in gypsy jazz, and what we do afterwards is play the C with G in the bass, which sounds great. Again, by placing the middle finger between the strings. You see, this is a very important technique in gypsy jazz. In this position, by playing the C6-9 like this, with the middle finger, bar chord with the index, E and A, and the ring finger playing D and G, I stay here and play a 3-note voicing for C minor 6. Which is of course a lot thinner than the voicing that I played before, but it's the typical voicing you would play here with C, muted D string, A and E flat. Then I played this G6-9, you can play again this one, whatever you want. You can also play this C6-9, which is more of a common jazz voicing, and it's also absolutely okay. Having the root here on the E string, 3rd fret, A string is muted, playing the E on the D string, which is the 6th, the 3rd with the pinky on the G string, and the 5th up here. Also absolutely okay. Afterwards, again, B flat diminished. This time I do not play it with the pinky. You can also play it with a bar chord in the index, covering E on the B string instead of F sharp. This is even more common actually for the dim sound. Again, 2-5, I played the same chords. Pretty obvious to play those chords, you know. You could play any D chord, but in that tune I would play basically this. And then we're heading for part B, playing a 2-5 that's leading to A minor, which would be B half diminished. It's the same voicing. You can use this also for D minor 6. It's just like B, F, A, and D. And I played the E like this. I'm playing playing the E always with a finger placed between the strings because I'm used to it. You can also use both strings, and that makes it a pretty common voicing for E7. And as a bass movement, I played like, or you can play this one. It's just like a bass movement. E7, and then we got D with F sharp, the bass. I play this to the G string, just like F sharp, muted A string, D and A, and then G sharp, muted A string, E, D. I go again for A minor 7, again D. So it's actually a simple tune. We have G again, and return to A with G and G sharp diminished. And again, I'm using my index as a bar chord. Back to A, and now the second part is like B dominant 7. There's a lot of options. I play this one and split it the measure into this one and this one. So it's B dominant 7 with B, D sharp, A, and D sharp. And then I played D sharp, A, C, F sharp. And all in all, this gives the sound from B dominant 7 flat 9. Here I'm playing only the dominant 7 chord, and with this dim chord from D sharp that I add here, I bring in the flavor of the flat 9. And now there comes a place in the song where there's a lot of different versions. You can go from the E minor chord and just remain on the E minor chord and play this typical minor fall from the root to the major 7, 7 and 6. Like, there's also a lot of ways to play it. This one is typical. You probably know this one. This is the normal bar chord, but I'm not playing the bar chord to the high E string, so I stop on the B string and the E string is muted. Then I play a minor major chord, so this is root 5th, major 7th, 3rd. Then I push down the bar chord and release the middle finger. This is a trick, so instead of playing the minor major chord like this and then changing fingers, I'm just releasing the middle finger. And then I can take the middle finger here and play the minor 6 chord, which is actually pretty difficult. So you got like E, B, C sharp, and G. This can also be played with the movement in the bass, and this is nice, especially on E minor, because you can do. So you can actually let everything ring. And do the minor fall like this. Try it. Try it with the major 7 bass. So we got E, G, B, D sharp, G, B, D, G, B, and C sharp, G, B. And this is typical. It's also the way you play the introduction in the rhythm guitar, for example, of Fosifora. And these are the most common progressions. The last common progression that's typical is not an option here because it would be this. For all the open strings, you wouldn't play it like this, you know. The other ones are better. But instead of this progression, some players play E minor 7, E flat minor 7, D minor, and again G to return to part A. So like, was fang ich ohne dich an? Or was fang ich ohne dich an? Both is possible and sounds good. Last A is the same than the previous A's, only the ending is different. So again, we play C, and you can choose between this C, or this that we already had for G with C, A, E, and G. C minor 6. Here I play the very easy C minor 6 on the A fret. You know, with C, A string muted, A, and then we got like E flat and G. And again, G with B in the bass. B flat diminished, A minor, D, and then we play like G, and then C minor 6/9, and again G, and when you return to A, some form of G7. So this one is pretty tricky because I'm having my thumb here in the root, playing with the middle finger, the 5th and the octave, having the 3rd on the index and the pinky up here. But you can also play like a bar chord or whatever chord. This one is also very nice. Thumb up here on the E string, pinky with the 5th, also difficult, but a typical Gypsy Jazz chord. All the easiest version with the thumb would be to just cover the root, leave the A string muted, and just play F, B, and D, which is the same as this normal jazz chord. And you can also play it like this. As I said before, it's not so 100% necessary to play all the chords, that are, let's say, idiomatic for Gypsy Jazz. But as I said before, the more chords you leave out, the more idiomatic voicings you leave out, the less it will sound like the original music. And there is no need to sound like any kind of original music, but let me say that I think the choice of style is actually important. What would music be without styles? We love styles, we play styles, and even the guys who do great fusion music come from several styles, Pat Metheny might be a great composer and contemporary artist, but he has deep roots in country music, same as Julian Lage, for example, or Birelli Lagrène, who did all the fusion stuff and played with Jaco Pastorius, Niels Henning Oste Petersen. He's deeply rooted in gypsy swing. So, and these traditional folk music styles like gypsy swing, flamenco, bluegrass, tango or Latin music, they give a very thick fundament to evolve, and when you want to sound like that, you should learn all the idiomatic stuff, because it's always a good idea to learn a music from the bottom. And that does not mean that the bottom is simple. It's just the bottom from a, let's say, it's a bottom to understand everything and how it grew together. It's not that it's simpler, and this is very important to understand, I think. I hope you liked that lesson, and if yes, subscribe to my channel. There's a lot more lessons and tons of material, also great performances by great players of the style, and I hope we meet again. This was Sven Jungbeck. Bye.